Good afternoon. We are so happy to join you for our third virtual JaneCon. In 2021, we shared our research on Jane Austen inspired video games and the challenges of representation.
And last year, we play tested a Regency-inspired hack that we designed based on the tabletop role-playing game For the Queen by Alex Roberts, which we titled For the Ball. You can find that and other related talks in the conference presentations playlist here on our channel, Critical Prof.
This year, we're not presenting, but presenting to you work by early career scholars working in the field of actual play. Actual play is an umbrella term used to describe improvised stories told through playing a role-playing game. We call these TTRPGs, or tabletop role-playing games, and you're probably familiar with the most famous of these, Dungeons & Dragons. But there's thousands of TTRPGs out there, many of which are available for free or low cost and are easy to pick up. And many are set in the Regency or inspired by the work of Jane Austen.
A Court of Fey Flowers is an actual play by Dimension 20 that combines the creatures and magic of Dungeons & Dragons with the mechanics derived from the biggest Austen TTRPG, Good Society. You can check out past virtual JaneCon presentations to hear more about Good Society and even watch others play it.
A Court of Fey Flowers has captured the imaginations of both scholars and fans in the not quite year since it first started airing. I taught my fall graduate seminar on Austen and games inspired by A Court of Fey Flowers, and I've argued in places like Polygon that Dungeon Master Abridged Bibliography has solved what we call the Bridgerton problem. How to tell a Regency story with queer themes and a majority BIPOC cast without falling into the pitfalls of erasing or whitewashing history or making things more sunshiny than they actually are. A Court of Fey Flowers, as our scholars will note today, does this by taking Regency themes and vibes and moving them into a new setting. In this video, you're going to hear from 3 doctoral students who are hard at work in a variety of fields, tackling everything from eco-criticism and material culture to the nature of queer readings and expansive understandings of gender, and far more. They come together with a passion and an interest in this particular show that I hope is infectious and encourages you to perhaps explore the world of tabletop role-playing games and the talented men, women, and friends beyond the binary who perform them every day for our delight. During the live premiere, we'll be in the comments answering questions, and, technology willing, we will join you for a live Q&A after the pre-recorded presentations. But for now, let's sit back and enjoy 3 10-minute presentations on the cutting edge of this amazingly exciting field. Thank you for joining us. Slyvan Baker is a doctoral student in English at Auburn University. Her dissertation focuses on material ecologies of new media forms.
Hi, everyone. This is a presentation of Matters in the Bloom from Austen's novels. My name is Slyvan Baker, and I am an English Literature PhD student at Auburn University. I've had the great privilege to enroll in one of Dr. M. Friedman's Jane Austen and Games graduate courses, where I was first introduced to Dimension 20's actual play, A Court of Fey Flowers, as part of the course. The actual play series, A Court of Fey Flowers, represents a discourse which transcends levels of narrative. The game master, Abridged Bibliography, the 6 tabletop players, or as we know them, our pack of pixies, and the audience are all creating, reacting, and consuming the story simultaneously with each other. In A Court of Fey Flowers, Jane Austen's Regency romance meets Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition tabletop role-playing game and the game Good Society in a transmedia storytelling platform. This actual play series, as a result, is an inclusive way of digesting and transforming stories between eras. There are many ways that A Court of Fey Flowers is adapted from Jane Austen's Regency novels, which are currently being discussed by other scholars as well. But one of the wonderful gifts about an actual play adaptation or interpretation is what Dr. M. Friedman and Emily Kugler discuss in previous virtual JaneCons in regards to how adaptive forms offer more inclusive representations for characters. In the last moment of the 2021 virtual JaneCon before Bridgerton, Emily Kugler remarks, quote, "We offer our reading to these games as a celebration of the questions they provoke. It is hard to know precisely what getting representation right would entail, but as we see in the conversations around some of the games, there are ways forward to better." I believe A Court of Fey Flowers, and much of the adaptations that Dimension 20 has produced through their actual plays, in many ways expresses ways forward to better representation, better understanding, better connection. One of these connections I would like to highlight is not just how the people are being represented, but how the world of Austen and all of its things are also attempted to be represented and connected with. What are material representations if not a response to what makes treasures valued, as Fanny Price's role as curator in Mansfield Park explains, as well as what Serena Marie's Banks Chopley, or first introduced as Gwendolyn Thistlehop, displays. By collecting unwanted discarded items from the Bertrams and filing them with her in the East Room, Fanny repurposes things and gives them their own social lives to live in their and her safe haven in Mansfield Park. Banks, as the sole survivor of the Court of Craft, offers a similar room, the Radiator Room, as well as explains the continuation of her fake court becoming very magical things we see every day. I think the Radiator Room and the treasured objects Banks highlights on, and that the very tokens of the game encompass, is an experiment in studying Austen's question of belongings and the way that we can read counterintuitively from all of the East Room social spaces in Regency novels, even to our own Radiator Room spaces now. Fanny realizes that love should envelop matters that matter, and these matters include people as well as things. Another character in the actual play, Captain K.P. Hobb, may not be curating items in the same way that Fanny does in Mansfield Park, or that Binks does with her court, but he is exacting meaning from that material world around him. The letters he finds most meaningful are transferred to his stomach, or coated in saliva before he transports them to their new destinations. Hobb is a man of his word, similar to the man of Austen's novels, in that his duty is to serve. Here, he is serving a connection to the world around him through his own bodily connection to the material as well as the representation towards the courts. He also has a connection to the more modern audience. It's important to note that Hobb is a bugbear from a goblin court. He is not known as a typical love interest choice, and yet he has all of the elements from Austen's male protagonist roles. In the actual play, all decisions and decision-making processes are working for Hobb through Brynley Mulligan and Abria Iyengar. So watching Brynley Mulligan and Abria Iyengar twine these stories and movements and material together helps to question how we might understand and connect with the literature that the game is loosely based around, as well as the materials around us in our own lives. Players and audience here are cognitively affected by these choices and can respond to such narrative emergencies that do amplify our own realities. One of the game mechanics is a twist from the game Good Society. Players are meant to complicate other players' lives and to work together or against each other to move the plots forward. One way of doing this is through the use of resolve tokens. According to the rules of Good Society, resolve tokens help to, quote, change narrative details about the world and twist events in the character's favor. They are named for and reflect a character's determination to pursue their goals. Many tokens are passed around to all of the players throughout the game, but some tokens have a much more significant role in the matters of these characters. In one scene of the actual play in episode 2, The Heart Hunt, Hobb realizes there's a moment between he and Deloso de la Rue. And he realizes he's breached proper public behavior, as is common in Jane Austen's male protagonist roles. With Deloso de la Rue, he has caused them great offense, and when he tries to remedy the matter, they swat his hand away. A brief conversation occurs, and then Rue leaves. Hobb is struggling between following after them or to stay as his duty requires of him for the task at hand. In most of Austen's novels, quote, male protagonists prove their worth by meeting demand for social restraint. A token is created from this moment. It's a peacock feather, similar to the one from Rue's Robin Hood-style cap. Hobb does not interact directly with anyone at this moment, but he and Brynley Mulligan go on to eat the feather and digest it on screen. So this significance of this moment is, and the consumption in itself, is that the storied worlds from Austen's novels, so the East Rooms, the balls, the characters, they don't stay on a page. This adaptation has brought to life the importance of the diversity in the people, but also the realness of the things that are being described and used and interacted with. So a feather is not just a feather. A character is not just a character. And a chord is not just a chord. The world is infinitely entangling together to make matters have meanings in so many ways. This knowledge moves the characters beyond their stations in life and their courts, and the performance actually continues to break boundaries and transcend these worlds. We watch this adaptation of Hobb as being an Austen male protagonist who has a strict duty at his court. But he's also shown us being sentimental, emotional, and connected. Our worlds begin to tangle between the stuff, Jane Austen, A Court of Fey Flowers, and beyond to our own worlds. In adaptations of the novel, especially in a more reciprocal nature, like this actual play series, modern culture can reevaluate what systems of value specify. As spectators of the narratives in the series, we're exposed to the flow of narrative and movement, unlike in novels or even television. We see Brynley Mulligan making choices for Hobb, and we understand Binks's court of craft and magical elements of things are decided choices on the actor Serena Marie's part. The physical tokens that Abria Iyengar gives to each of the players, and even narrated to the characters, accentuates this connective importance. In the end, A Court of Fey Flowers, as an actual play, and an interpretative lens of Austen, is a space that does not just give a story, but creates a world of stories that are constantly coming to new meanings.
Eliza Alexander Wilcox is a PhD candidate at the University of Tennessee at Knoxville, studying queer femininity and disability in the traditional long 18th and 19th centuries, and in new media representations. Their research on queer femininity and Regency-era media is forthcoming from Feral Feminisms, and their dissertation will trace the emergence and visibility of queer femmes and queer femininity in the long 18th and 19th centuries.
Hi, my name is Eliza Alexander Wilcox. My pronouns are they and she, and if you'd like to follow along with this talk, please go to the tiny URL or use the QR code. My talk will be Regency Femininity in A Court of Fey Flowers, and I'll be arguing that tabletop role-playing games, or TTRPGs, offer new orientations towards the past, using fantasy and roleplay to better map the queer possibilities hidden underneath the veneer of a monolithic, presumed heteronormative past. Specifically, I use femme theory to ground my reading of Dimension 20's A Court of Fey Flowers, an Austen-inspired Regency actual play, to illuminate how the show's exploration of femme unearths underexplored queer gender possibilities in other Regency media. A Court of Fey Flowers bridges 21st century femme culture with late 18th century debates surrounding femininity and womanhood, opening space for theorizing femme within and against the centrality of white cis-heteronormative femininity to the Regency era and Regency fiction, particularly works like Austen's. In quick summary, A Court of Fey Flowers follows 6 player characters as they navigate the bloom, which is the quote, magical event of the millennium, meant to blend together Regency-era house parties, coastal excursions, fox hunts, and masquerade balls. Oscar Montoya portrays Doloso de la Rue. They are introduced as the mistress of the bloom, pride of the Court of Wonder, who keeps things at the bloom running. Brennan Lee Mulligan portrays Captain K.P. Hobb. Captain Hobb is a member of the Goblin Court, a duty-driven honorable bugbear, and much of his narrative arc in the show revolves around learning to pick love over duty as he falls in love with Rue. Serena Marie portrays Gwendolyn Thistlehop. However, early in the season, it's revealed that Gwendolyn is actually Binks Chopley, the last known survivor of the Court of Craft, whose magic, we find out, was stolen to sustain the Court of Wonder and other allied dominant courts. Abria Iyengar, the show's game master, portrays Wovey, among many other non-player characters. Wovey is Rue's longtime assistant and close friend, and she spends much of the season helping Rue, trying to love them in ways Rue does not know how to respond to, and finding her own way. A central factor in the Court of Fey Flowers' ability to showcase femininity in the Regency era is through its genre, actual play. Actual play, which in its broadest definition are recorded performances of tabletop role-playing games, can collapse temporal and affective boundaries, both with its own audience and within its own story. And within those collapsed spaces, creators and audiences are able to experience what I am tentatively calling affective role-playing. When actual play chooses to return to historical landscapes through fantasy and role-playing, the collision of the diegetic or in-game narrative, identified by actual play theorists like Robin Hope and Emily Friedman as part of the core layer of actual plays, collides with out-of-game histories that I call chrononormative narratives, borrowing from Elizabeth Freeman's definition of chrononormativity as the cis-hetero demand on temporality, orienting us to maximum productivity in service to the white cis-hetero patriarchy. This collision in actual play creates space to re-inhabit historical moments and reinscribe them with new narrative, aesthetic, and affective layers. A Court of Fey Flowers deploys affective role-playing to re-inhabit the Regency and excavate femme in one of the key sites of white colonial femininity. To create a landscape where femme is meaningfully engaged with themes of racism, imperialism, and colonialization, A Court of Fey Flowers combines two game systems, Good Society and Dungeons & Dragons. Dungeons & Dragons dominates the TTRPG field due to its status as one of the first worldwide TTRPG successes. However, in recent years, Dungeons & Dragons has faced consistent criticism for its historically racist themes in their fantasy world building, such as their depictions of drow or dark-skinned quote-unquote evil elves and orcs. Good Society faces an altogether different issue in its no racism mechanic built into the world building of the game. Good Society players choose whether gender is the same, neutral, or switch to a matriarchy, but no such option is built into the game with regards to race or ethnicity. Unlike Dungeons & Dragons, which cannot seem to fix its race issue due to its insistence on racial bioessentialism, Good Society empties race of meaning altogether. Mainstream Regency media, like Bridgerton, have also been scrutinized for its alternate universe approach to the Regency, in which creators and actors of color, particularly Black creators and actors, inhabit Regency worlds without being subject to trauma performances at the same level as historically accurate recreations would demand. However, Queen Charlotte, the latest Bridgerton installment, intends to race in ways the first two seasons did not. As Trisha Matthew writes in her review of Queen Charlotte, the show, quote, never promised us a history lesson, but does, quote, recognize its many nods to the cultural moment it plays with. A Court of Fey Flowers, like Queen Charlotte in many ways, is innovative because of its use of a race-centric Dungeons & Dragons to counteract the no-racism approach of Good Society. The setting changes do not replace or displace the historical Regency or Regency texts, but rather add thicker textures to these places, spaces, and stories. Affective role-playing, then, in A Court of Fey Flowers, engages femme erotic subjectivity, an essential component to femme embodiment, according to femme theorist Ashley Coleman Taylor, to disrupt Eurocentric femininity and chrononormativity. Turning to a tender early scene moment between Rue and Hobb, I will argue this is a moment of affective role-playing, where the resonance with Regency love scenes like those in Austen or Bernie encounters, quote, the femme body as the vehicle for the erotic processes of transformation and the politicization of femme materiality. In this scene, Montoya and Mulligan's interactions highlight the way material embodiment reorients the way femmes move throughout the world, physically and emotionally. In this hunt, a willing member of the Court of Hoof and Claw acts as the bait for the player characters to chase and catch. While the other player characters take their own approaches, Hobb recruits Wovey to help him. Rue watches, bemused and enticed, importantly in this outfit, which is a take on Robin Hood with 9-inch brown heels, a green and gold mini dress, and an oversized hood cape. Their teal green skin glimmers, and their dark teal hair is worn down in waves. The attention to aesthetic over practicality seems in this moment a direct response to what Mary Wollstonecraft names as the, quote, too rich a soil women are in, where, quote, strength and usefulness are sacrificed to beauty. Leaning into the excess of costuming in this scene allows Montoya to demand attention away from, quote, productive femininity. Rue's presence in this early exchange begins to demonstrate how their disruption demands Hobbes' attention away from his military duties, putting Rue at odds with Hobbes' initial imperial-aligned goals. As the scene suddenly becomes night, the hunt having gone on for a while at this point, Hobbes says to Rue, "Rue, I worry about you in the glade. There is space in my hiding spot for two if you wish to join me. It would be an honor to make sure that you are safe here in the dark forest at night. And also you are extremely visible in ruining my trap." At this moment, Iyengar intervenes, asking Hobbes to make an insight check to see if he catches the look on Rue's face collapsing as Hobbes calls them, quote, extremely visible. This initial conflict, aided by the role-playing mechanics represent the conflict between Hobbes' duty and Rue's desire that carries throughout the season. Skipping to the turn of the fourth episode, Rue was contemplating their dress for the masquerade and wearing this nightgown. They originally planned to go to the high tea that episode in a Regency-inspired outfit, which is a purple and white ball gown made of actual teacups. Montoya describes it as, quote, a sort of nod to Marie Antoinette here, including a powdered white face in the style of the French Revolution. However, on the way to the ball, Montoya chooses this moment as the one to reveal that all is not what it seems. Montoya leans into the imperialist implications of the Fey world through the reveal of Rue's true form, making a clear connection between Fey-centric or Eurocentric power and femininity. Rue walks into a high tea towards the beginning of episode 4, and instead of the teacup outfit, their form shifts as they walk into the room. Instead of being an elf with beautiful green skin, teal hair, long legs, and sleek ears, it's revealed that Rue is an owlbear. Taken from the material plane, from their home and their kind, they developed a green-skinned Rue to fit in and navigate court life. It would have been simple for Montoya to throw off all elements of Rue's original high femme aesthetic, but Montoya does not do this. Instead, Rue embraces the queer femininity that has helped them express and sustain themselves in a world their own body was never made to fit in. Montoya describes Rue's owlbear form in a, quote, beautiful Regency-era gown in a soft pink taffeta, covered in pink peonies, wearing a crown of even more pink peonies. Montoya continues to sketch out the tension between proper femininity and subjecthood. Rue's interactions with Binks Chopley in particular create a counter-narrative for femininity, rejecting cis-heteronormative beauty and body ideals with roots in Eurocentricity. M. Friedman highlights both Rue and Binks as two underrepresented character types from the 18th century that A Court of Fey Flowers renders particularly visible. Binks, who we find out is the sole survivor of a court devastated by the Court of Wonder's magic colonization, is the, quote, outspoken female revolutionary who is fighting to prevent further imperialist domination via magic hoarding, while Rue is a gesture towards dandies, beaux, macaronis, mollies, and binary fluting celebrities like Anne Lister, the Ladies of Llangollen, the Chevalier Dion, and Beau Brummel. I would build on this characterization of Rue in particular to argue that what Rue offers is resistant to what Kaji Amin names as both the white androgyny of non-binariness and the ubiquitous category of non-binariness that can seemingly apply to anyone. Instead, Rue shows that it is not necessary to be androgynous or to cross, to be masculine and present feminine and vice versa, in order to be queer and trans, and also that there is something specifically feminine and queer that is in fact aesthetically, ontologically different from cis-heterosexual femininity. To find out what happens to Rue in terms of love and being their true self, you'll need to watch the rest of A Court of Fey Flowers. But I hope this talk offers a glimpse into femme histories made through rejecting Eurocentric femininity and embodying a femme erotic subjectivity. Montoya pulls the audience back to the Regency to ask us to imagine the shape of femininity and femme desire in those histories might look like. As the past continues to inspire and affect the present, actual play and effective role-playing may offer nuanced avenues into complex histories we may never fully know, but must try to orient ourselves to anyway.
Austen Anderson is an English PhD student at Howard University, where he studies literature and culture of the Americas, with a particular focus on racial representation in video games, comics, and literature. He has published in The Comparatist, Bodies of Water, and ASAP J, and has presented at MLA, AAAD, NYU, and CUNY.
Hello, my name is Austen Anderson. I'm a PhD student at Howard University working in game studies, American literature, and African American literature. My dissertation focuses on racial narratives in contemporary video games. I'm also an avid tabletop RPG player and dungeon master, and a massive fan of D&D actual plays, especially Dimension 20. So when my dissertation director, Emily Kugler, invited me to participate in this panel, I was thrilled to offer some thoughts about not only one of my favorite shows, but one of its best seasons, A Court of Fey Flowers. But first, Dungeons & Dragons was first released in 1974 after designers Gary Gygax and Dave Arneson produced a relatively rudimentary Tolkien-inspired RPG. The game first grew in popularity in American suburbs among mostly young middle-class white boys, which has led to D&D being associated with whiteness and maleness. In his recently released Privilege of Play, Aaron Tramwell tells the story of white masculinity among geeks throughout the history of hobby gaming, of which D&D is a prominent example. Tabletop gaming emerged amongst the broader hobbyist community, and Tramwell persuasively argues the TTRPG community's suburban mindset was a holdover from segregationist policy and white flight. Young white men who felt isolated from their broader communities became extremely precious of the imaginative space of D&D that they claimed as their own. To be clear, women and people of color and LGBTQ persons have been playing D&D and other TTRPGs since their inception, but these individuals were often marginalized or outright excluded by the privileged voices in the community. More tables, both professional and private, are working to become more inclusive. D&D's parent company, Wizard of the Coast, may have some extremely problematic and anti-labor business practices, but even they have been supportive of diversifying the world of D&D, which brings us to Dimension 20 is one of the most successful D&D actual plays, and they have long sought to be an inclusive space for players and audiences, from Brennan Lee Mulligan's consistent commitment to using white male privilege for allyship, to The Seven featuring an all-woman cast, to spotlighting POC dungeon masters like Gabe Hicks and Jasmine Boulard, to the recent Dungeons & Drag Queen season featuring 4 beloved professional drag artists. Dimension 20 and their parent company Dropout reveal a commitment to radical inclusivity that spotlights a variety of performers from historically marginalized backgrounds, and no season embodies the exciting potential of inclusive value systems, quite like A Court of Fey Flowers. Abria Iyengar is the game master for A Court of Fey Flowers, and she's one of the most talented and beloved TTRPG players and game masters working today. While the existence of this panel attests that there is significant value of Court of Fey Flowers for scholars and the general public alike, I am most interested in how Abria subverts the white heteromasculine value systems that have been traditionally prioritized within D&D by awarding players with inspiration for particularly detailed fashion descriptions. It is my argument that Abria's use of inspiration is a mechanical intervention into the privileged white masculinity that is traditionally rewarded in D&D. Throughout A Court of Fey Flowers, players lean into the Regency-inspired setting to offer truly incredible visual descriptions of their players' fashion. Oscar Montoya plays fan favorite Delosa de la Rue, and Oscar is particularly adept at describing Rue's fashion, which Abria explicitly encourages. Take this moment from episode 1, A Bloom to Remember.
Rue, as everyone calls me, is decked out in theme in honor of the Seafoam Court. They're wearing a gorgeous light blue, sort of like bodysuit. Yes. Skin tight, very Britney Spears in the Toxic Fit.
Yes!
Glittering, dazzling. Also, the ensemble is an ode to the birth of Venus.
Yes, continue.
And
this is
in the
good for
bottom,
me.
you think it's just a bodysuit, but oh no. In the bottom, you see that it is in fact a mermaid dress that rises up in a beautiful taffeta in the shape of the shell. Painting.
Let me be very clear. I did say this was a fashion game, so you are going to be making all persuasion checks for the rest of this session at advantage.
Oscar offers an elaborate description of Rue's outfit, and Abria emphatically encourages and acknowledges Oscar. Importantly, Abria rewards Oscar's commitment to fashion with a mechanical advantage called inspiration. But why is this important, and how is Abria doing something pretty radical with this decision? A Court of Fey Flowers uses Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, but Abria makes numerous mechanical changes to the game, such as a reputation tracker that emphasizes the importance of socio-political maneuvering. While D&D has always encouraged players to experiment, certain player communities militantly emphasize following the rules of the game. In his essay, Rules Lawyering, a Symbolic and Linguistic Capital, Steve Dashiell looks at the rules lawyer, a player who zealously follows and polices the rules of a board game, as a masculine TTRPG archetype, and he argues the proclivity of the rules lawyer towards masculine forms of discourse, such as argument, exemplifies the ubiquity of hegemonic masculinity in tabletop role-playing. This hegemonic masculinity is further supported by the value systems traditionally celebrated at D&D tables, like combat and brute force. Abria confronts the masculine archetype of the rules lawyer by using inspiration, a rule in the Dungeon Master's Guide that states that DM should award inspiration when players take action that make the game more exciting, amusing, or memorable. Inspiration allows a player to roll an attack roll, ability check, or saving throw with advantage, meaning you roll 2 d20-sided dice for one of these checks instead of the typical 1. In short, inspiration doubles a player's chance at success and is a significant advantage for players. At a typical table that prescribes to white heteromasculine value systems, a DM might reward inspiration for a particularly violent kill or a body seduction. Abria, instead, encourages her players to embrace fashion, something historically associated with femininity and feminine values, and rewards her player for embracing these value systems with a mechanical in-game advantage. Abria's use of inspiration to reward prototypically feminine value systems offers important lessons for game masters and scholars alike. For those of us who DM tables, both publicly and privately, we have an ethical obligation to ensure our tables are inclusive, and Abria's use of inspiration provides an excellent lesson on mechanically rewarding players for inclusive gameplay. For scholars, Abria offers a helpful lesson about combating hegemonic structures within the rules of the system itself. While Aaron Tramwell aptly notes board games still reflect a privileged white subjectivity with historical roots in imperialism, A Court of Fey Flowers reveals the potentials of players and game masters to combat these systems from inside the privileged space of play. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. We would like to thank you, our presenters, and all those who make virtual JaneCon possible, including our many supportive colleagues, friends, and family who have given us feedback and patience while we work on this project. Following the live premiere of this video, we'll join you for the Q&A, see the chat for links, and make sure to tune in for the next and final presentation of this year's virtual JaneCon. Tiffany Cruz will be speaking on the timeless, transformative, and turbulent romance of Elizabeth Bennet and Mr. Darcy, exploring Austen's most beloved couple through the lens of Taylor Swift's music. See you in a bit.